earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell in them. Every blooming flower, every blade of grass, and the swaying branches of the trees sing their Creator's praise. God first gave Adam and Eve the responsibility to care for creation. Today, despite the nature of sin, we still have the job of being stewards of God's creation. We often talk about creation through the lens of science or archaeology. We seek to validate nature through data and research. Today, we will examine the song of nature through the eyes of creatives. Pastor Jimmy Botha, President of the Scottish Mission, is an avid photographer who examines the beauty of creation through a camera lens. Writer and composer Sharon Platt MacDonald, who is also the Women's Community and Health Ministries Director, revels in the autumn season of mellow fruitfulness through poetry and piano composition. But first, let's peep into the world of award-winning florist Audrey Balderstone as she speaks to writer Michelle Bahadur Barham about how she worshipped God through her flower arrangements and how different flowers sing the glory of creation.
So Audrey, what inspired you to get into flowers in the first place?
Well, I grew up in a very deprived area of Belfast in Northern Ireland, in a little 2-up and 2-down house. So we had no garden. But my mother loved flowers, and she used to grow sweet pea in a tin bath in the backyard. I was a Presbyterian, went to Sunday school every Sunday. And all year I looked forward to Children's Day because I knew on that day they would bring a big box in. When they took the lid off, there were all these little bunches of sweet pea. The smell was absolutely wonderful and the colours were just gorgeous, and I looked forward to that every year. And I think that's my initial love of flowers.
That's beautiful. I love sweet peas as well. Also, since arranging the flowers, you've been to the Chelsea Flower Show in London as well. Talk us through the journey to get in there.
Well, that was very strange. You have to be invited to enter the competition at the Chelsea Flower Show. And as I said, I belong to the Watford Floral Society. And we had an invitation from the organisers if we would like to go into the competition. So the chairman of Watford Floral Society is a chap called Jeff Fox, and he's a Christian as well. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we share our love of flowers and arranging in church. So I said to him, shall we do it? And he said yes, because the reason I thought I could do it was that it was for a pedestal. And it was, well, it wasn't particularly for a pedestal, but I thought I could do a pedestal for this title because it was one about things that have influenced you in the past. And I thought I could do the NAFAS, the National Association of Flower Arranging Societies. Mm-hmm. In the older days, there was such a thing as a NAFAS triangle. They'd do it. Now, when you enter, they give you a criteria, and you get marks for each criteria: the interpretation, the condition of your flowers, the way in which you put it together, all these things. And at the end, you get the biggest mark for the wow factor. And I thought, well, I can't see a pedestal having the wow factor, but we'll go in anyway. I have a friend in London who is a florist, and he very kindly arranged that he would get my flowers for me because he imports his straight from Holland, and I wanted some very special flowers. I rang him. He was going to be away the day we were going to pick up the flowers because we were going to pick them up from his shop and go straight to Chelsea. I said to him, do I need to bring any boxes? Right? No, he said, there'll be everything you need. We got to the shop and went in, and the girls said, all your flowers are here, Audrey, they're lovely. And she said the only thing we couldn't get was ruscus, soft ruscus, which is this this plant, which comes in long strands, and it gives a lovely flowing, especially for a pedestal. You usually use it. So that was a bit of a, ooh, what are we going to do? Fortunately, I had ordered some amaranthus, and I thought, well, you have to adapt to things. And so I said to them, so where are the boxes? And she looked at me with a face of horror. She said, we threw them all away. Jeff said, what are we going to do? And I said, give me a minute. I have to say, I did send up a little silent prayer. What are we going to do? So I said to her, do you have any bin liners? Now, these flowers were some of them were very delicate indeed. And we had to put them into black bin liners. Because she said, you can take them in the buckets, but I had a Jaguar and there's no way we're going to get hundreds of buckets. Well, it wasn't hundreds, but it was at least 20 buckets of flowers. So we had to lay them out, and we thought, oh dear. Anyway, we got to Chelsea, and they're very organised in how you go in, and we had a time slot and so on. When we drew up to the door, I could see all these very experienced flower arrangers all walking in with their boxes like this, and we came along with our black bin liners. It was a bit of a thing. Anyway, it all went well until I got to I had to do an arrangement, or I wanted to do an arrangement at the bottom. And I said to Jeff, this is where I really do need some ruscus. Now, very strangely, some years before, some people in our Oxford church asked me if I would do a flower festival for them. They didn't really have arrangers. They had a few people who were quite keen. So I said I could bring some from here. And I wrote to the chairman of the Oxford Flower Club and said to her, was there anybody in her club would do an arrangement or two at this church? And she said, of course, and we arranged to meet, and she brought 2 of her friends, and she then said, where are you going to stay when you're doing the festival? So I said, well, we'll probably stay in a Travelodge. She said, why don't you come and stay with me? This is a lady I'd never met before. It just so happened that she was the next person at this competition. And when she heard me say that, she said, Audrey, do you need some ruscus? She said, we've got plenty. And gave it to me. It was such a blessing.
That's incredible.
And we got a gold medal, and she got a silver one. So I felt a bit bad about that, but it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Oh,
it was one of the best experiences, not the best, but one of the best.
Yeah, I can imagine going from doing flowers that you didn't think you were able to do and teaching yourself to actually winning a competition.
That was a big thing.
Can I also ask you, if you have, looking back on your journey, how do you see God's hand guiding you?
Well, particularly because I am not artistic. I cannot draw. I'm embarrassed even to draw stick men. and that is a huge drawback, especially when you're doing big displays and so on. Because most arrangers are very artistic and they will draw out their designs and so on. I can't do that, and so I have to have it in my head. And that's what makes me believe that it's a gift God has given to me for a specific purpose, to glorify Him. The last flower festival we had was in 1917, just before COVID. and it was Solo Deo Gloria, to God alone be the glory. And that's how I feel, because I know it's not me, it's a gift from God, and I'm very grateful for it.
And we're so grateful that you're able to share it and impact other people's journeys too.
Yeah.
Is there any particular flower that you attach to a memory?
Well, the sweet pea, of course.
Yeah.
And I love roses. As children, we would go to the waterworks, and on the way back there was a disused house with a disused garden, and in there were old rose trees, and the perfume of them was lovely. But I think probably the flower that I love most and associate with most is the longiflorum lily. In flower arranging, I always use it, and most people do, to represent Christ. And I do so because it's pure white. I use lilies, longiflorum lilies called Watch Up, and it has a head that points upwards. The perfume again reminds me of the perfume of the love of Jesus in our hearts, and it is so pure and beautiful that's very special to me.
Nature photography is a specialist subject that can be challenging to master, but Jimmy Botha has been taking photographs since his father gave him a camera. So Jimmy, when you look down a camera lens, what do you see?
So it depends what you're pointing at. I think for anyone who's done any photography will know that if you're going to take a picture of something, you need to compose the picture well. And composure to me comes fairly naturally. The rule of 3 by 3 and so forth, is there, and there's no time to think about composure if you have to quickly take a lot of pictures of something happening very quickly. So what I'm seeing a picture that needs to be, if it is a nature picture, a nature shot, it needs to become a picture that is not going to be a 2D image, because a 2D image seems so flat. But if you want a picture that's really enjoyed, it almost needs to be a picture where you feel you can walk into.
So when you talk about taking a picture that's like got depth, what's one of your favourite pictures that you've taken? I know that when you're working, you're out and about, you'll take these gorgeous pictures. What's one of your favourites?
I particularly enjoy living in Scotland, where no day looks the same as the next day. The clouds are always different and everything else changes. I used to stay in a place where the 3 bridges cross over the Forth River. And I used to take thousands of pictures over there. But there was one particular day when I drove just a little bit further away from there and looking more into the North Sea. And on this day, there was a rainbow that got my attention. And as I got the camera ready to take this rainbow picture, which is an obvious thing to do, I noticed in the corner of the picture that the clouds further to my right actually made a very beautiful formation. And so instead I took a picture of this scene without any rainbow in it, just the sea, a bit of land on the side, and this incredible clouds. And for me, that's one of the favorite shots I've ever taken in nature. You got the obvious things people want to take. If you're in South Africa, for instance, and there's 65 elephants coming through during lunchtime to get their water and to put Mother Nature's sunblock, which is the mud on them and stuff like that. It's obviously good pictures to take like that. but there's one or two places where you don't go to these obvious things where someone else might just pass it and they might not notice the beauty in a certain spot. And for me, I'm always looking, is there not something, even in a park like this, there's a tree over there which I think is a tree that I would love to photograph. The one that's got some dead wood on it and so on. And I think that would be a lovely tree to photograph. You take away the goalposts from near it and so forth, and looking at it from the right angle with the correct light, and it may become a really, really fantastic picture. So I see in the ordinary things there must be something extraordinary, because there always is.
So, you talked about light. When the first thing that God did was He created light. How do you use light in your photography?
The way that you can take a 2D image and make it into more like a 3D image. And I say more like a 3D because you can't really from a photo create a 3D image like that. But the way you're going to make it so that it draws your eyes, draws your attention, and people want to look at it a bit more and say, well, there's something about this. In my own amateur way, I've discovered that if the right light is in the correct place in that composition, then it gives you that sort of that entrance, the place where you feel you can walk into the picture. And I've also discovered that, and we were in Northern Ireland once, and it was so overcast, and the day was just perfect. The light was soft enough that you could almost do anything from that point of view. And I took these pictures of this coastline, and I was able to use filters to just allow the correct amount of light to land on a specific place, but the rest of the picture, you just don't do that. And what it does is, I think photos is all about light. Ever since I've known photography, the word light is the important word. How much light do you let in and how much don't you? And if you're going to take a picture that has a lot of things in it, a major shot with plenty of items that you could see on the picture, maybe you just want to focus on one specific thing or one specific area, and you want the light to be there and the rest of it not to be so well illuminated.
So Jimmy, just as we close, it's Creation Sabbath, and photographs often capture the beauty of creation. What would you say to somebody who either wanted to take up photography or was an amateur photographer, and their relationship with garden photography?
I would say for me, taking photos is one of the easiest hobbies that there is. And especially these days with mobile phones taking such good pictures and so forth, I would say don't try and go and spend money on things that you don't really know what they do and so on. Photography is about two things. Well, it's about light, of course, and how to control this light in the camera. You're working with two things basically, and that is the aperture, which is how wide the lens opens and gives you a depth of field or not. And the other thing, of course, is the exposure, how long your. But even if you had a DSLR camera, you could set it on automatic, and of course the camera will decide all those things for you. For me, I think if you want to do that with an SLR camera, you might as well use your phone, which is doing just as well. And I would say, find yourself a theme. Find yourself something that you think, okay, I like this about life, or I like that about life. Maybe I can photograph things that relate to this. And it may be anything. It may be bees or honey, or it may be chocolate, or something that you enjoy eating or sharing with friends and so on, and just make a theme of that and see if you can take various photos in various different ways. I would say if you want to enjoy photography, don't just take pictures of what's there. Look at what's there and see, but what is it that's in there? Talk about Creation Sabbath. That dead tree that's standing there, I don't know, I can see leaves on it, and I need to go closer to go and examine exactly what's going on there. But for me, with the right light, even though it's a dead tree and we talk about Creation Sabbath, it maybe also tells me about the fact that life can be regenerated. And that God, when He created the whole world, and the universe, and we look at seasons and things like that, there is hope. You know, even if something looks dead right now, there is hope. And in everything that's out there, maybe in the composition we make, something in that image will give us hope and will remind us of God's creativity and the way that He has created us as well. As humans, we are creative. Maybe one last thing I can say about that. If someone wants to try, if someone wants to start out new and so forth, go and have a look and see what others have done, who's done it before. And there's so many resources on the internet. There's so many YouTube channels that you can actually follow of individuals taking specific type of photographs. So for instance, you can follow some guys who absolutely just go to specific places in the world and take specific types of photos. And I've done that as well, because that's where I get some of the ideas from and so forth. There's so many resources. Don't go expensive, it's not necessary. And start with what you have. I think that there's plenty there.
Like Jimmy, Sharon has been writing and playing the piano since a child. Listen and indulge the senses.
Autumn leaves. Sun-kissed leaves, tanned by summer's warming rays, transition their foliage into a new phase. A collage of colours painting the landscape bright. Golden yellow, burnt orange and russet tones captivates our sight. Vibrant hues dancing before our eyes, contrasting boldly with azure skies. Autumn leaves, cascading, swirling, falling silently towards the ground, connecting gracefully without a sound. Yet, autumn speaks in the crunch of dried leaves beneath our feet. A carpet of colour, nature's wreath. The death of summer's garbs, as trees shed their autumn leaves. Children playing gleefully, what a glorious and wonderful sight to see. As they celebrate the season's change, reveling in fallen leaves, a joyful rampage. Let's exalt in the beauty and wonder of God's vast creation. Its fusion of colors, varied sounds and expressive songs. Then lift hands and hearts in jubilation, with homage and adoration to our God, to whom all praise belongs.
But ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the heavens, and they will tell you, all the bushes of the earth, and they will teach you, and the fish of the sea will declare to you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done? In his hand is the life of every living thing, and the breath of all mankind.